Today's selection is I Am Redeemed.
Oracles of the UCI. 1 Peter chapter 4, verses 7 through 11. But the end of all things is at hand. Be you therefore sober, and watch unto prayer. And above all things have fervent love among yourselves, for love shall cover the multitude of sins. Use hospitality one to another without grudging. As every man has received the gift, even so minister the same one to another as good stewards of the manifold grace of Elohim. If any man speak, let him speak as the oracles of Elohim. If any man minister, let him do it as of the ability which Elohim gives, that Elohim in all things may be glorified through Yahshua HaMashiach, to whom be praise and dominion forever and ever. Amen. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 29 through chapter 5 and verse 4. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. And grieve not the Holy Spirit of Elohim, whereby you are sealed until the day of redemption. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and evil speaking be put away from you with all malice. And be you kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as Elohim for Yahshua's sake has forgiven you. Be you therefore followers of Elohim, as dear children, and walk in love, as the Mashiach also have loved us, and has given himself for us an offering and sacrifice to Elohim for a sweet-smelling savor. But fornication and all uncleanness or covetousness, let it not be once named among you as becomes saints. Neither filthiness, nor foolish talking, nor jesting, which are not convenient, but rather given of thanks. Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. Keep your foot when you go to the house of Elohim, and be more ready to hear than to give the sacrifice of fools, for they consider not that they do evil. Be not rash with your mouth, and let not your heart be hasty to utter anything before Elohim. For Elohim is in heaven, and you upon earth. Therefore, let your words be few. Exodus chapter 23, verses 20 and 21. Behold, I send an angel before you, to keep you in the way, and to bring you into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him, and obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgressions, for my name is in him. Revelations chapter 3, verses 20 through 22. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him and he with me. To him that overcomes will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I have also overcame and am sat down with my Father in his throne. He that has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says unto the churches.
All right, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Which is peace on Yahweh's holy Sabbath day. Welcome to another holy convocation that Yahweh has enjoined unto us here in Stone Mountain, Georgia. We first of all want to praise Yahweh that we have the opportunity to continue to worship and praise Yahweh, our Elohim, during these very strange times that we are living in. And these are just the beginning of things. When we get right down to it, when we get into examining what's written in this book, we are going to go through some very different things for righteousness to be set in the earth. The heathens are going to fight with their full capabilities when it comes down to fighting against righteous rule, because that means that the things that they have gathered and hoarded among the inhabitants of the earth, that they're going to have to give some of that stuff up. And the heathen's not trying to give anything up. So then it's going to have to be a great shakeup from Yahweh, our Elohim, for these things to come to pass. You know, I was on the text this morning with a few brothers, brother Benea from Carolina, I think it's North Carolina where he is, and brother Hananiah in California. And we were just discussing how some of these things that are going on as far as the stay-at-home order is forcing people to actually deal with their children. It is, yeah, we need to pass out the Apocrypha. it is forcing people to have to deal with their children because the schools are closed and people are at home. And we have to remember that this nation of Israel started as a family first. So Yahweh, even in the things that the heathen is doing for their purpose, he's forcing us back and dealing with the very things that happened first in the beginning. It was Israel as a family, then it was Israel the nation. And to some people, just dealing with the members of their family is already a situation where they're having to do some new things because this is not anything that they have been accustomed to, especially here in the daughter of Babylon. It's not set up for you to be able to spend that much time with your children. Woe unto you that desire the day of Yahweh. To what end is it for you? The day of Yahweh is darkness and not light. As if a man did flee from a lion and a bear met him, or went into the house and leaned his hand on the wall and a serpent bit him. Shall not the day of Yahweh be darkness and not light? Even very dark and no brightness in it. I despise your feast days, and I will not smell in your solemn assemblies. Though you offer me burnt offerings and your meat offerings, I will not accept them. Neither will I regard the peace offerings of your fat beasts. Take you away from me the noise of your songs, for I will not hear the melody of your vows. Let's begin today's sermon in Isaiah chapter 1. Isaiah chapter 1, and today's sermon is entitled Yah's Great Day. Yah's Great Day. See, sometimes to get us the understanding that something is precious, Yahweh has to allow some things to take place as far as supply and demand. Sometimes when something is in great supply, we don't believe that the value is great. So what he has to do is take away some of that supply so that we will begin to appreciate the things that we have. Then, of course, there becomes a demand when the supply is low. We've saw the television recordings of the people fighting for toilet paper. That's the last thing you would think people, would be in the store fighting over. But when supply changes, demand grows, and all of a sudden the value of something that people thought had zero value now has become majorly valuable. Well, Yahweh's doing the same thing with the truth of his word. He's going to cause it to be more valuable because at this point, everybody has a Bible. It's sitting on everybody's coffee table. The supply is great. When he starts cutting off things in the earth and letting the heathen have their way for a while, then the demand for his word is going to grow enormously. Isaiah chapter 1, and let's start that at verse 1.
The vision of Esaias, the son of Amos, which he saw concerning Yehudah and Jerusalem in the days of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Yehudah.
Another thing that I thought about from what me and the brothers were talking about on the text, one of the brothers was saying, Yahweh is, forcing us to get our stuff right. We look at this situation because of the mandatory rules that have been put in place. We've had to separate some chairs. We've had to do some things, but you have to consider what is happening. Now, because of that, the brothers are in the sanctuary and the sisters are in another room. That was the way that Yahweh set it up from the beginning. Right. Read, brother.
Hear, O heavens, and give ear, O earth, for Yahweh hath spoken. I have nursed and brought up children, and they have rebelled against me. The ox knows his owner, and the ass his master's crib. But Israel does not know, my people does not consider. Ah, sinful nation, a people laden with lawlessness. a seed of evildoers, children that are corrupters. They have forsaken Yahweh. They have provoked the Holy One of Israel unto anger. They are gone away backward. Why should you be stricken any more? You will revolt more and more. The whole head is sick, and the whole heart faint. From the sole of the foot even unto the head there is no soundness in it, but wounds and bruises and putrefying sores. They have not been closed, neither bound up, neither mollified with ointment.
Right. So we have a sickness, but because we have gotten accustomed to the ways of the daughter of Babylon, we don't even try to heal the sickness. What we do is try to act like there is no sickness present. This is that thing where we present face. But Yahweh is going to go into the inner parts of our home to deal with us. Why? Because Israel started as a family and then grew into a nation. So all of those things that we try to show face on, Yahweh going to bring it to the surface one way or other. He has to cleanse it and deal with it. Go ahead.
Verse 7. Your country is desolate. Your cities are burnt with fire. Your land, strangers devoured in your presence. And it is desolate, as overthrown by strangers.
As it is to this day. Go ahead.
The daughter of Zion is left as a cottage in a vineyard, as a lodge in a garden of cucumbers, as a besieged city. Except Yahweh of hosts had left unto us a very small remnant, we should have been as Sodom, and we should have been like unto Gomorrah. Hear the word of Yahweh, you rulers of Sodom. Give ear unto the law of your Elohim. Give ear unto the law of our Elohim, you people of Gomorrah. To what purpose is the multitude of your sacrifices unto me, says Yahweh? I am full of the burnt offerings of rams and the fat of fed beasts, and I delight not in the blood of bullocks, or of lambs, or of he-goats. When you come to appear before me, who has required this at your hand to tread my courts? Bring no more vain oblations. Incense is an abomination unto me. The new moons and Sabbaths, the calling of assemblies, I cannot away with. It is lawlessness, even the solemn meeting.
Bring no more vain oblations. When it's to the point where it doesn't mean anything, why bring it? If you're going to do service unto Yahweh, but then do it with a corrupted spirit, with a corrupted mind, why even do it? Then now it has become vain. He says, the new moons and Sabbaths, the calling of assemblies, I cannot away with. It is lawlessness, even the solemn meeting. So, because we are under some kind of things, and now things have changed, a lot of congregations are doing their streaming. We've always been doing streaming. This is not anything new for us. But do we now cut down on what we do for Yahweh because the numbers physically goes down, because now people are broadcasting? Do we now say, all right, it doesn't matter if you clean or unclean? Do we now half do the job for Yahweh? Should I be the only one dressed because I'm the only one in front of the camera? What we gonna do? Understand now, we still invited the angel that stands at the door to come in and sup with us, and us with him. You know, he really don't give a fat frog's tail that you just streaming. When he see you standing near the altar out of line, he gonna deal with you. Then we'll go and have some issues next week and try to figure out why we having all these issues. Right. The people ain't who we supposed to be dealing with anyway. Okay? We're dealing with Yahweh. Go ahead.
Isaiah chapter 1 and verse 14. Your new moons and your appointed feasts my soul hates. They are a trouble unto me. I am weary to bear them.
Right. You can go online and people broadcast their gatherings, and you see nothing but lawlessness. You can see how they get together. It's just a big party. What was read in the opening? I don't want to hear your songs. Since there's no truth in what it is you do, don't even sing to me. And you look at some situations and that's their biggest thing, the song. They'll sing for 45 minutes to an hour. But y'all ain't not hearing that song. Because of the order that's being broken openly in the gathering. And then you film the lawlessness so that everybody can see it. And all those who read the book can point it out. That's lawlessness. That's lawlessness. That's lawlessness. But we still having a good old time. Go ahead.
And when you spread forth your hands, I will hide mine eyes from you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, when you make many prayers, I will not hear. Your hands are full of blood.
Right. We don't see the blood on our hands because it's spiritually done. See? But when we do things that cause other people to fall or cause them to fall back from the word, then there is blood on our hands, depending on what that is. Go ahead.
Wash you, make you clean. Put away the evil of your doings from before mine eyes. Cease to do evil.
Now, if those people have a problem with Yahweh's word, then that's the problem that they got with Yahweh, not with you. Go ahead.
Learn to do well. Seek judgment. Relieve the oppressed. Judge the fatherless. Plead for the widow. Come now, and let us reason together, says Yahweh. Though your sins be as scarlet, they shall be as white as snow. Though they be red like crimson, they shall be as wool. If you be willing and obedient, you shall eat the good of the land.
There's one thing I want to bring to the front. It says, let us reason together. You know, there's certain things that we will look at and we will take to consideration and think that, you know, hey, this may be heavy. Because he says, woe unto such and such. Woe. So we know that that's a dangerous situation because he has pronounced woe. You know the part we don't even consider as dangerous? When Yahweh say, let us reason together. I don't think y'all understand how he reasoned. I don't think y'all understand how he deals with things. When Yahweh reasoned and he is trying to communicate with the children of Israel and motivate us to do some things, man, a whole mountain might slide down a hill. That's him reasoning with us, depending on how disobedient we are in the reasoning process. Go ahead.
Verse 20. But if you refuse and rebel, you shall be devoured with the sword, for the mouth of Yahweh hath spoken it.
Right, exactly what I just said. But you have to think about all the many ways in which he can do that. And what we'll do is we'll point out the natural things of the world and say, well, this group of people did this. Those group of people did that. Each and every last time we got under Yahweh's skin, he let somebody else come in and deal with us. But it was Yahweh doing it. Are we able to see that when it takes place? Go ahead.
How is the faithful city become an harlot? It was full of judgment, righteousness lodged in it, but now murderers. Your silver has become dross, your wine mixed with water. Your princes are rebellious and companions of thieves. Everyone loves gifts and follows after rewards. They judge not the fatherless, neither does the cause of the widow come unto them. Therefore says the Adonai Yahweh of hosts, the mighty one of Israel, I will ease me of mine adversaries and avenge me of mine enemies. And I'll turn my hand upon you and purely purge away your dross and take away all your tin. And I will restore your judges as at the first.
Right. That's what he's beginning to do now. I'm going to restore your judges. He's starting to make sure that the children of Israel are hearing this word, beginning to understand this word. So he's at the process of restoring your judges. The judges execute righteousness, but they got to first know what righteousness is. Go ahead.
Afterward, you shall be called the city of righteousness, the faithful city. Zion shall be redeemed with judgment, and her converts with righteousness.
Zion shall be redeemed with judgment. Not a bunch of song and dance. Go ahead.
And the destruction of the transgressors and of the sinners shall be together, and they that forsake Yahweh shall be consumed. For they shall be ashamed of the oaks which you have desired, and you shall be confounded for the gardens that you have chosen. For you shall be as an oak whose leaf fades, and as a garden that has no water. And the strong shall be as tow, and the maker of it as a spark. And they shall both burn together, and none shall quench them.
All right, let's go to Jeremiah chapter 7. Jeremiah chapter 7, and let's start that at verse 1.
Jeremiah chapter 7 and verse 1.
And we have to remember now, Yahweh says, will I do a thing and not tell my servants the prophets? He says, I tell my servants the prophets first. And Yahweh is the maker of heaven, earth, and all that in them is. He don't have to ask nobody. He don't have to communicate with anybody. But that's being gracious even in his power. That he announces what he's going to do with Israel before he does it. Consider that. All power, all knowing, omnipotent, omnipresent, and still tells us before he makes a move. That's gracious in power. Go ahead.
The word that came to Jeremiah from Yahweh, saying, Stand in the gate of Yahweh's house, and proclaim there this word, and say, Hear the word of Yahweh, all you of Yehudah, that enter in at these gates to worship Yahweh. Thus says Yahweh of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, Amend your ways and your doings, and I will cause you to dwell in this place.
That's what this whole thing is about. Us amending our ways. We have all grown up under some kind of understanding, whatever our place was that we grew up, whatever was normal there, whatever was normal to our parents. So every last one of us have a different set of things that we have to amend because of our own upbringing. I can tell you there's a difference in the things that my younger children know as it goes down to this word, and the things that my oldest son knows. I wasn't in the word at the beginning of his life. I didn't know the things that I knew with my later children. So the things that he got accustomed to were different than the things that they have gotten accustomed to. Go ahead.
Trust you not in lying words, saying, The temple of Yahweh, the temple of Yahweh, the temple of Yahweh are these. For if you thoroughly amend your ways and your doings, if you thoroughly execute judgment between a man and his neighbor, if you oppress not the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow, and shed not innocent blood in this place, neither walk after other gods to your hurt.
Right. Now, this is not going to make you popular. Okay? Yahweh doesn't care about your popularity. Verse 5, for if you thoroughly amend your ways and your doings, if you thoroughly execute judgment between a man and his neighbor. When you thoroughly execute judgment between a man and his neighbor, somebody that's not going to like that judgment. So you ain't come in and say, all right, we're going to do this so everybody be happy. No, we're going to do this so that righteousness is set forth. So somebody going to walk away justified and somebody going to walk away empty-handed. Now, what does it do to the heart of the empty-handed person? Does he see righteousness, or does he see a bone of contention that he will chew on and later try to attack against later? And if you're going to execute judgment, you have to take all that into consideration, but still do the job. He still expects you to do the job. Go ahead.
You know, it's interesting with Moshe, when he executed judgment, it cost him his lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. You better believe it. And every time he tried to do something with the children of Israel, and he's doing all of these great things, it was the very people that he was trying to save. Those very people was the ones that was gathering up rocks to stone him. Why? Because the things that he was doing at that time was not popular to them. They didn't see that it was separating them from the wrath of Yahweh. All they saw is he's taking something away from us. He's making us do something that doesn't seem easy to do. And that's our problem. We want easy. Easy ain't gonna get us salvation. Easy got us in the daughter of Babylon and spread all across the globe as slaves to all the nations. Go ahead.
Jeremiah chapter 7 and verse 7. Then will I cause you to dwell in this place, in the land that I gave to your fathers forever and ever. Behold, you trust in lying words that cannot profit. Will you steal, murder, and commit adultery, and swear falsely, and burn innocents unto Baal, and walk after other gods whom you know not, and come and stand before me in this house, which is called by my name, and say, we're delivered to do all these abominations? Is this house, which is called by my name, become a den of robbers in your eyes? Behold, even I have seen it, says Yahweh. But go you now unto my place, which was in Shiloh.
Which was in Shiloh. See, people say, as long as they're in the place of Yahweh, then they can do, whatever. They have the protection of Yahweh. But as soon as we walk away from the word, we just walked away from our protection. He said, go into my place, which was in Shiloh. Go ahead.
Where I set my name at the first, and see what I did to it for the wickedness of my people Israel.
And see what I did to it. You think I won't destroy something just because it's got my name in it? I'll take my name out of it and then destroy it. Because once you decide that you're not going to walk in what thus says Yahweh, spiritually, his name has already been taken away. Now all they got to do is take away the rocks and the timber thereof and knock the whole thing down. Go ahead.
And now, because you have done all these works, says Yahweh, and I spake unto you, rising up early and speaking, but you heard not, and I called you, but you answered not. Therefore will I do unto this house, which is called by my name, wherein you trust, and unto the place which I gave to you and to your fathers, as I've done to Shiloh. And I'll cast you out of my sight, as I've cast out all your brethren, even the whole seed of Ephraim. Therefore pray not you for this people, neither lift up cry nor prayer for them, neither make intercession to me, for I will not hear you.
Right. So consider, as evils are increased in the earth, we go about and we're going to see all of these people, Israel, who don't know or care that they are Israel. They are going to begin to suffer more and more in the street. And consider that some of them, you can pray all you want, and Yahweh ain't gonna hear you. Because Yahweh says they have already made a decision. Go ahead.
Seeth you not what they do in the cities of Yehuda and in the streets of Jerusalem? The children gather wood, and the fathers kindle the fire, and the women knead their dough to make cakes to the Queen of Heaven, and to pour out drink offerings unto other gods, that they may provoke me to anger. Do they provoke me to anger? Says Yahweh, do they not provoke themselves to the confusion of their own faces? Therefore says the Adonai Yah, behold, mine anger and my fury shall be poured out upon this place, upon man and upon beast, and upon the trees of the field, and upon the fruit of the ground, and it shall burn and shall not be quenched. Thus says Yahweh of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, put your burnt offerings onto your sacrifices, and eat flesh. For I spake not unto your fathers, nor commanded them in the day that I brought them out of the land of Egypt, concerning burnt offerings or sacrifices. But this thing commanded I them, saying, obey my voice, and I will be your Elohim, and you shall be my people, and walk you in all the ways that I have commanded you, that it may be well unto you. But they hearkened not, nor inclined their ear, but walked in the counsels and in the imagination of their evil heart, and went backward and not forward. Since the day that your fathers came forth out of the land of Egypt unto this day, I have sent unto you all my servants the prophets, daily rising up early and sending them. Yet they hearken not unto me.
Right. I sent my prophets unto you. I've warned you of the things that were going to come, but Israel will not consider. Are sinful people laden with lawlessness. So it takes an increase in things like this on the earth for Israel to even begin to listen. We absolutely, most of the time, we give Yahweh no choice. Because he's already spoken softly, but we won't hear soft speaking. Go ahead.
Yet they hearken not unto me, nor incline their ear, but harden their neck. They did worse than their fathers. Therefore you shall speak all these words unto them, but they shall not hearken to you. You shall also call unto them, but they will not answer you. But you shall say unto them, this is a nation that obeys not the voice of Yahweh their Elohim, nor receives correction. Truth is perished, and is cut off from their mouth. Cut off your hair, O Jerusalem, and cast it away, and take up a lamentation on high places, for Yahweh has rejected and forsaken the generation of his wrath. For the children of Yehudah have done evil in my sight, says Yahweh. They have set their abominations in the house which is called by my name, to pollute it. And they have built the high places to Tophet, which is in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to burn their sons and their daughters in the fire, which I commanded them not, neither came it into my heart.
Right, because the other nations burnt their children, and then we got off into the same things. We get anything we see the nations do, we get off into it too. You know how sick you have to be to have, something as righteous as this law, but then you gonna burn your kids in the fire? Why do you think it was one of them things? I have to remind people, get thrown off when they read in Genesis and Yahweh said, go sacrifice your son. And people say, why would Yahweh even ask Abraham to sacrifice his son? What you think they was into? What do you think the other nations was doing right around them? You think that's strange? Setting your kid on fire, you don't think that's strange? Go ahead, brother.
Therefore, behold, the days come, says Yahweh, that it shall no more be called Tophet, nor the valley of the son of Hinnom, but the valley of slaughter. For they shall bury it in Tophet, till there be no place. Verse 33, and the carcasses of this people shall be meat for the fowls of the heaven, and for the beasts of the earth, and none shall fray them away.
That is a part of our curse. As it is written, curses everyone that hangs on a tree. Yahshua was nailed to a tree. They tell you a cross. And they were going to leave his body there. They had to beg to bring the body down. Because they said, it's about to be a holy day. We cannot leave this. We can not have this body hanging up here. But this is a part of the curse. That the bodies are not allowed to be buried. And each time he's dealing with us, here's the situation. Same thing over and over and over again. Yahweh doesn't change. And when he does change, he tells his prophets first before he institute that change. Go ahead.
Then will I cause to cease from the cities of Yehudah and from the streets of Jerusalem the voice of mirth and the voice of gladness, the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride, for the land shall be desolate.
All right, let's go to your apocryphers. We're going to go to 1 Maccabees chapter 1. First Maccabees chapter 1.
And it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Shittim, and had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece.
Now, we can go in our history books and find these very same things. So this is one of the things why the nations did not want certain books of what they have in the Apocrypha. We're talking about a straight history book documenting what the children of Israel went through. We're talking about these things fill the gap in between Malachi and Matthew. so that you understand what the land of Israel was like when Yahshua got there. See, with us not having this picture, you kind of lose a lot of things. This is why they asked Yahshua, have you come at this time to restore the kingdom unto Israel? Well, understand what was the climate before that. Understand what was going on. And those are the things that we don't see because they don't want us to see that particular part. And it tells you, and it happened that Alexander, the son of Philip the Macedonian, we can go and find, these are your Gentiles. This is who came and invaded the children of Israel, came and invaded the land. And then now those very same people has so-called set up some people who look just like them and told us they the Jews. Now ain't that peculiar? But we read in our history books who it was that invaded. Go ahead.
And made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth, and went through to the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him.
Right. So when they talk about the speed in which Alexander the Great took over the earth, you know, he was likened unto a fast beast. Because he just went conquering and he won every battle he got into. Go ahead.
Whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up. And he gathered a mighty strong host, and ruled over countries and nations and kings who became tributaries unto him. And after these things he fell sick, and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable, and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive. So Alexander reigned 12 years, and then died, and his servants bare rule everyone in his place. And after his death they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been an hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us.
See, this is Israel. We want to be the friend of whoever in power. Whoever in power, that's our friend. And you still have those of Israel today that operate the same way. Go ahead.
For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow.
Right. We have nothing but problems when we try to follow this law. Let's go back to dealing with the things of the heathen, so life can be easy for us. Go ahead.
So this device pleased them all. Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem, according to the customs of the heathen, and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief.
Right. And when they have their places of exercise, we know that they play their games in the nude. So this is how they operate. Even to this day, you'll go to a gym, and somebody just walk up to you naked and start talking. Hey man, you can't talk to me with your squirrel out, brother. That's not gonna work. This conversation is over. Go ahead.
Now when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Egypt, that he might have the dominion of 2 realms. Wherefore he entered into Egypt with a great multitude, with chariots, and elephants, and horsemen, and a great navy, and made war against Ptolemy, king of Egypt.
And we can go in our history books and find all of these names. There's a reason why they did not want this in your Bible. They made it to where you have to go somewhere else to read that. Because we can find these names. We can get Encyclopedia Britannica and find every last one of these names. Then we can put a face to it. See? We put a face to who came and did all of these evils in the land. Go ahead.
But Ptolemy was afraid of him and fled, and many were wounded to death. Thus they got the strong cities in the land of Egypt, and he took the spoils thereof. And after that Antiochus had smitten Egypt, he returned again into the 143rd year, and went up against Israel and Jerusalem with a great multitude, and entered proudly into the sanctuary, and took away the golden altar, and the candlestick of light, and all the vessels thereof, and the table of the showbread, and the pouring vessels, and the vials, and the censers of gold, and the veil, and the crowns, and the golden ornaments that were before the temple, all which he pulled off.
Now remember, Yahweh said, amend your ways, or I'm going to do all of these things unto you. Then we turn around and read the history book, and every last one of them things end up happening to Israel. But he tried to stop us beforehand. Amend your ways, amend your doings. We don't. Then he takes back the hedge and let the heathen come in. And they take all our precious things. Go ahead.
He took also the silver and the gold and the precious vessels. Also he took the hidden treasures which he found. And when he had taken all away, he went into his own land, having made a great massacre, and spoken very proudly. Therefore there was great mourning in Israel in every place where they were, so that the princes and elders mourned, and virgins and young men were made feeble, and the beauty of women was changed. Every bridegroom took up lamentations, and she that sat in the marriage chamber was in heaviness.
Right, the things that are normally a situation of joy, it's hard to even be joyous during a time like that. Go ahead.
The land also was moved for the inhabitants thereof, and all the house of Jacob was covered with confusion. And after 2 years fully expired, the king sent his chief collectors of tribute unto the cities of Yehuda, who came unto Jerusalem with a great multitude.
Right. Whenever you got to pay a tax, you are being ruled over. Remember, this was, as it say, during the time when Yahshua was born, it was time for all of them to come and pay a tax. They were tributaries. Now you got to work and then give us a portion of those things to another nation, not to your own. Go ahead.
And spake peaceable words unto them, but all was deceit. For when they had given them credence, he fell suddenly upon the city, and smote it very sore, and destroyed much people of Israel.
Right. One of the things you have to do in reading this, you understand how the nations operate. So when we start to hear other things in the future, you have to remember the history. At least you be surprised by some things. Go ahead.
And when he had taken the spoils of the city, he set it on fire, and pulled down the houses and walls thereof on every side. But the women and children took they captive, and possessed the cattle.
But the women and children took they captive. So what he's trying to do is defile the head, kill all the males, take the women and children for themselves. Go ahead.
Then built they the city of David with a great and strong wall, and with mighty towers, and made it a stronghold for them. And they put therein a sinful nation, wicked men, and fortified themselves therein.
Right. And we can go and read again and easily see how every time we end up with a situation where the children of Israel are removed, and then wicked doers are put in our land. And yet we're still amazed that other people are in our land. Go ahead.
They stored it also with armor and victuals, and when they had gathered together the spoils of Jerusalem, they laid them up there. And so they became a sore snare. For it was a place to lie in wait against the sanctuary, and an evil adversary to Israel. Thus they shed innocent blood on every side of the sanctuary, and defiled it, insomuch that the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them, whereupon the city was made an habitation of strangers.
Right. Check this out. Their goal was to defile the sanctuary. Their goal was to defile it. So now the people won't want to deal with it because it has been defiled. They want everybody to be alike. That way it's easier to rule over those people. See, it's harder to rule over a bunch of different cultures. Because when you're trying to enact this thing, they over here talking about clean and unclean. Go ahead.
You know, it's interesting. Verse 35 starts out and said they stored it also with armor and victuals. And if you know the story of how the people who are in the land now got in place, wasn't it Great Britain in U.S. that had stored armor and stuff and walked away and just gave them access to it?
Oh man, they didn't just store it. They trained the heathen. They trained the heathen on war like things. They armed them. They did all of those things. After de-arming the so-called Palestinians, they took all their weapons, then gave the so-called imposters that they call Israel. They gave them weapons, trained them on war, and then announced one day and marched out. So you got one side that's got guns, cannons, tanks, and the other side that's got sticks and rocks. And then they just marched out one day. And it's been on since that day. They made sure that it wasn't going to be a fair fight. And see, American Great Britain act like they don't know what they will come to the table and talk about. You know, we should have peace in this land, in this occupied land, when they the ones that set up the uneven fight. They weakened one side, strengthened the other side, and then just walked out. And they knew exactly what was going to happen. Go ahead.
Whereupon the city was made an habitation of strangers and became strange to those that were born in her.
So consider that. The city became a city of strangers. Understand, now you can understand why when they see Yahshua, first of all, the powers that be were nervous. Who is this that was born king of Israel? Now they worried if they're going to lose their position. So they automatically have a problem with it. Then the children of Israel, have you come at this time to restore the kingdom of the Israel? Because man, we're tired of going through this. Go ahead.
And her own children left her. Verse 39. Her sanctuary was laid waste like a wilderness. Her feasts were turned into mournings. Her Sabbaths into reproach. Her honor into contempt. As had been her glory, so was her dishonor increased, and her excellency was turned into mourning. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people.
Now, these are the things that we're having problems with even unto this day. There are things being implemented to make us all one people. Go ahead.
And everyone should leave his law. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrificed unto idols and profaned the Sabbath.
Right. It is a necessity to become one with the heathen for us to profane the Sabbath. So they will institute something one way or another that causes us to profane Yahweh's holy Sabbath. And hey, if you tell the people they can't have a gathering of more than 10, now you have some people, because see, this is how we do. We go from one thing to the next. So some people say we can't gather in more than 10. Next thing you know, somebody else is out partying Friday night. What you partying Friday night for? Well, you know, I can't go in there. So now we've gone from one thing to something else. Now we're on a whole nother level. Why? Because of one thing. Go ahead.
For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Yehuda that they should follow the strange laws of the land. and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple.
Forbid burnt offerings, sacrifice, and drink offerings in the temple. What's different from what we got now? The places that I've drove by on the way here that are normally packed, empty. They forbid it one way or another. Go ahead.
And that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days.
Profane the Sabbath and the feast days. And you can't blame people who especially the people who live farther away, whether they would even want to take that journey in today's time, because people don't know exactly how far they're going to go with this thing. Go ahead.
And pollute the sanctuary and holy people. Set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts.
Sacrifice swine's flesh purposely to defile Yahweh's holy things. So now, once somebody see the swine flesh offered on it, they don't want to have anything else to do with that. Go ahead.
That they should also leave their children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation, to the end they might forget the law and change all the ordinances.
Right. So it was the Gentiles marched into Israel and proclaimed that the law was now unlawful. They made the law unlawful. It was not lawful to keep the law. Go ahead.
And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die. In the selfsame manner wrote he to his whole kingdom, and appointed overseers over all the people, commanding the cities of Yehudah to sacrifice city by city.
Commanding them to break the law. Commanding them to break the law of Yahweh and keep the law of man. Yahweh said, if you had kept my law, I would have kept all of these things from you. So now, you won't keep my law voluntarily, but the heathen gonna make you keep his. The heathen walking around with enforcers trying to see how many people are in each place. Yahweh said, hey, it's voluntary. I'm going to give you the option to keep my law. But I tell you what, when I put that heathen over you, oh, he going to rule over you with the rod of iron, and you going to keep his law. Go ahead.
And many of the people were gathered unto them, to wit, everyone that forsook the law, and so they committed evils in the land, and drove the Israelites into secret places, even wheresoever they could flee for safety. Now the 15th day of the month, Caslu, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar, and built idol altars throughout the cities of Yehudah on every side.
Right. Understand, at this particular time, the Pope ain't got nowhere to go, y'all. Ain't nobody coming out into his little square. And now, because of the sickness, the Arabs vacated the temple. Anybody paying attention? Now, they were constantly at battle for this holy site. This thing happened, the Arabs left. Now, the so-called Jews, the strangers that we keep reading about that was put in there, now they got free reign. Right. Go ahead.
And we see what they did the last time something sat desolate long enough.
Yeah. Oh, it's theirs. It's mine. I done had this for 4 hours now. It's mine. Go ahead.
And burnt incense at the doors of their houses and in the streets. And when they had rent in pieces the books of the law which they found.
Rent in pieces the books of the law. They want to make sure that there's you can't even find no breadcrumbs to lead you back to Yahweh's law. Tear it up. I don't want them to even backtrack and fall into it and say, hey, man, what it is? Go ahead.
They burnt them with fire. Whithersoever And wheresoever was found with any the book of the testament, or if any consented to the law, the king's commandment was that they should put him to death.
It was a death penalty to keep Yahweh's law. But look how Yahweh did things. He kept giving us the opportunity to amend our ways. He kept giving us an opportunity. Fix this, fix this, fix this. All right. You don't want me to be your king? I'm going to let the heathen be your king. And the heathen ain't going to ask you to keep his law. You're going to keep his law or you're going to die. Go ahead.
Thus did they, by their authority, unto the Israelites every month, to as many as were found in the cities. Now the 25th day of the month they did sacrifice upon the idol altar, which was upon the altar of Elohim. At which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised.
Consider that somebody is put to death because they got their kid circumcised. But it was a whole movement of going against the people who were keeping the commandments. What do you not see who is ruling over these people? This is why the Gentiles who come outside of that are really seeking their salvation, because Lucifer is ruling over them. Consider when it says Lucifer is come out and he has great indignation and he makes war with the remnant of them who keep the commandments. Okay, what we reading here? We see the people who's are going against them, and we see who the people are, and we see why they're coming against them. So it ain't going to be nothing new. Go ahead.
And they hanged the infants about their necks, and rifled their houses, and slew them that had circumcised them. Howbeit many in Israel were fully resolved and confirmed in themselves not to eat any unclean thing. Wherefore they chose rather to die, that they might not be defiled with meats, and that they might not profane the holy covenant. So then they died.
Consider that. Will we do that? Go ahead.
And there was very great anger upon Israel.
Now check this out. And there was very great wrath upon Israel. Some chose to die rather than to eat the unclean meat of the adversaries. Let's go to Daniel chapter 1.
Daniel chapter 1 and verse 1. In the 3rd year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Yehuda, came Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, unto Jerusalem, and besieged it. And the Adonai gave Jehoiakim, king of Yehuda, into his hand, with part of the vessels of the house of Elohim, which he carried into the land of Shinar to the house of his God. And he brought the vessels into the treasure house of his God. And the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of his eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel, and of the king's seed, and of the princes, children in whom was no blemish, but well favored, and skillful in all wisdom, and cunning in knowledge, and understanding science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace, and whom they might teach the learning and the tongue of the Chaldeans.
Right. They want our best and our brightest, so they can use those people, completely convert them, then use them as a symbol for the rest of us as what we should do if we want to live well in Babylon's kingdom. As it is to this day. They call it scholarship. We'll give you a scholarship. So you can come and learn how to be like us. And we're going to train you in all the things. And then we'll use you as a poster child. Go ahead.
And the king appointed them a daily provision of the king's meat, and of the wine which he drank, so nourishing them 3 years, that at the end thereof they might stand before the king. Now among these were of the children of Yehuda, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah.
Right. Those are their real names. Go ahead.
Unto whom the prince of the eunuchs gave names, for he gave unto Daniel the name of Belteshazzar, and to Hananiah of Shadrach, and to Mishael of Meshach, and to Azariah of Abednego.
Right. These things were given unto them. They were given these names so that it might glorify the heathen God. Because if they kept their real names, it glorified Yah. Daniel, El as in Elohim. Hananiah, Yah. Mishael as in Elohim. Azariah, Yah as in Yahweh. Their names glorified the God of Israel. They couldn't keep those names. To this day, we don't really understand the power of those things. But you see, Daniel had to then step away after he's taken to Babylon. He has to then say, I don't want to eat this meat. But then we just read, look at how Yahweh then still showed, favor unto Daniel. He wasn't killed because he didn't eat it. Jump to chapter 6. But making the law illegal, nowadays, the way it's done is they cause our neighbors to look down upon us. There's too many rules at your church. Why you can't just do what you want to do? Why you can't just, right? It is, they have learned the assault of the heathen, and now the heathen let them assault us. When we try to keep the holy days, they say, oh man, they're keeping that bondage. Because they have been convinced against the law. Go ahead.
Daniel chapter 6 and verse 1. It pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 princes, which should be over the whole kingdom, and over these 3 presidents, of whom Daniel was first, that the princes might give accounts unto them, and the king should have no damage. Then this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and princes, because an excellent spirit was in him, and the king thought to set him over the whole realm. Then the presidents and princes sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom, but they could find none occasion nor fault, for as much as he was faithful, neither was there any error or fault found in him.
Right. They could not find a problem with him, but they say, I know how to create a problem. Go ahead.
Then said these men, we shall not find any occasion against this Daniel, except we find it against him concerning the law of his Elohim.
Right. So we have to find a way to make something in his law against man's law. And then we're going to get Daniel. Go ahead.
Then these presidents and princes assembled together to the king, and said thus unto him, King Darius, live forever. All the presidents of the kingdom, the governors and the princes, the counselors and the captains, have consulted together to establish a royal statute, and to make a firm decree, that whosoever shall ask a petition of any god or man for 40 days, save you, O king, he shall be cast into the den of lions.
That is for 30 days, save you, O king, he shall be cast into the den of lions. So I need to put this in layman's terms. Prayer has now been made illegal. It is illegal to pray at this particular time. See, we have so many things in abundance that it never occurs to us that there are certain very valuable things that we have, but because they're easy to come by, we don't think they have any value. This is a very valuable loss here if now prayer is being made illegal. Go ahead.
Now, O king, establish the decree and sign the writing, that it may not be changed, according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which alters not. Wherefore King Darius signed the writing and the decree.
Just as it is done today. The rulers sign bills into law, and they have no idea what's in them. What do you think just happened with this king? He had no idea of the real intent of the law. They gave him a little brief synopsis of what it was on the surface. The inner part of that law was altogether something different. You hear them talking about the so-called stimulus? They arguing over the other stuff that's in it. 99.99% of people will never know what's in it. And people just look at the title of it, or it's a stimulus to help people who are not working. So people say, yeah, they ought to vote for that. You go inside the law and you find completely unrelated things. Somebody little cousin get $100,000. Somebody else's business get a $10 million contract. All that was in the same law. So here it is, we vote for a law, but the law might be 400 pages. We ain't read the 400 pages in this book. You think we gonna read 400 pages of a new law? Go ahead.
Now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went into his house, and his windows being open in his chamber toward Jerusalem, he kneeled upon his knees 3 times a day, and prayed and gave thanks before his Elohim as he did aforetime.
And they knew he did it. Go ahead.
Then these men assembled, and found Daniel praying and making supplications before his Elohim. And they came near, and spake before the king concerning the king's decree. Have you not signed a decree that every man that shall seek Has you not signed a decree that every man that shall ask a petition of any god or man within 30 days, save you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions?
Right. But you see how now they put it on him. Haven't you signed? Didn't you sign this? Go ahead.
The king answered and said, The thing is true, according to the law of Medes and Persians, which alters not.
Right.
Then answered they and said before the king, That Daniel, which is of the children of the captivity of Yehuda, regards not you, O king, nor the decree that you have signed, but makes his petition 3 times a day. Then the king, when he heard these words, was sore displeased with himself.
He was sore displeased with himself because he realized he got played. See, they went at it in an angle to present it as one thing. And because in the vanity of his own heart, he saw it as a glorification for himself. He didn't see that he was going to actually hurt somebody that he cared about. Now he finds out what their real intention was when they come to him. But it's too late. He has already signed it into law. That's why he's displeased with himself. Go ahead.
You know, the sad thing is sometimes you have a situation that you can back up, start correcting. But had he said, yeah, y'all go ahead and do it, and not signed, then he could have backed up. But no, you went and signed something that they say alters not.
Right.
You can't back it up now.
Yep. And they set it up so that he couldn't back out of it. You know? But this is, always the thing. Once he's played, and once it comes to fruition, he know he got played. So even if they had, succeeded in killing Daniel, they were going to be in serious trouble with him. Because he know they played him. Go ahead.
And set his heart on Daniel to deliver him. And he labored till the going down of the sun to deliver him. Then these men assembled unto the king.
Now, ask yourself a question. It says he labored till the going down of the sun to deliver him. What was he laboring in? How was he trying to deliver him? What put it in reverse? How did he get condemned? The law. So he was trying to find another law that would supersede that law. So he's laboring to find a way legally to get him out. Go ahead.
Then these men assembled unto the king, and said unto the king, Know, O king, that the law of the Medes and the Persian is, that no decree nor statute with the king established may be changed.
You see how they keep reminding him? You can't back out of this. So as he's laboring to try to find a way to institute or bring some other law into play that would give Daniel a opportunity to get out of this, they realize it too. Remember now, King, the law author is not. You can't change the law. Ain't this your signature? All right. Go ahead.
Then the king commanded, and they brought Daniel, and cast him into the den of lions. Now the king spake, and said unto Daniel, Your Elohim, whom you serveth continually, he will deliver you.
Now check that out. The heathen has more belief in our God than some of us do. Your God, whom you serve continually, he is able to deliver you. How does the heathen have more faith in our Elohim than we have in our Elohim? And the end result here, the king definitely knew he was played, because after Daniel was not killed, now it was those deceivers' chance to go in with the lions. Now let's see if y'all make it out. Let's go to Revelation chapter 11. See, that was also according to the law. For the things that you try to set up for someone else, it's only righteous judgment that thing be set forth for you. They set it up so that Daniel would go into a den of lions. Now it's your turn to go in the den of lions. You got exactly what you gave him. Now let's see if y'all come out. And you talking about some really cruel punishment. I don't know if y'all watch that Animal Channel. It get me. I be stuck for hours looking at the Animal Channel. Kids hate to bend the corner and find me. This dude on the Animal Channel again. They know it's gonna be hours before they get that television back. But let me tell you something, man. Lions will sometimes play with their food. They won't even kill it right away. Lion is a big cat. All right? You ever seen a cat just sit there and just corner something and just slap it with his paws? Just bite it, let it limp, act like it get away, tell all the other lions, no, sit down, let him get to that tree. Okay, now go get him and bring him back. They playing with it. Imagine that's you. And he got teeth this big. And he just playing with you. He let you crawl over to the door and then drag you back. He teaching his kids how to pounce. All right, get all the way down. All right, get all the way down. All right, now pounce on his afro. Get over there. He teaching his kids how to hunt on you. Revelation chapter 11, let's start that at verse 1.
And there was given me a reed like unto a rod. And the angel stood, saying, Rise, and measure the temple of Elohim, and the altar, and them that worship therein. But the court which is without the temple leave out, and measure it not. For it is given unto the Gentiles, and the holy city shall they tread underfoot 42 months.
It is given unto, listen to this, but the court which is without the temple leave out. Measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles, and the holy city shall they tread underfoot 42 months. So you got the inner court, you have the outer court. So Yahweh is allowing some things. This is the first time ever that we've done in this building. Nothing but men in the sanctuary. At some point, we have to ask ourselves, is Yahweh making some kind of point? before you brothers get to beating on your chest about it, do understand all that labor that those sisters do? We supposed to be doing that too. So before you're ready to beat on your chest, consider. Go ahead.
And I'll give power unto my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,203 days, clothed in sackcloth. These are the 2 olive trees and the 2 candlesticks standing before Elohim, before the Elohim of the earth. And if any man will hurt them, fire proceeds out of their mouth and devours their enemies. And if any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. These have power to shut heaven, that it rain not in the days of their prophecy, and have power over waters to turn them to blood, and to smite the earth with all plagues as often as they will.
Right. So you're talking about even dealing with the culmination of the rulership of the Gentiles. You're talking about all of these things that are going to take place in the heavens. We have to ask ourselves that there's, supposed to be this sickness over the earth that you can breathe back and forth. Now everybody has been told, and this is basically going all over the world in a very short amount of time, I might add. All right. We had a nuclear explosion in Japan. It didn't go all over the world as fast as this little cold sneezy thingy. That was a nuclear plant. But the cold sneezy thingy has gone all over the world immediately. Now, and if everybody's confined to their house, and we know that these people are preparing some things to fight against Yahshua, or they, believe they're going to fight aliens. In all their movies, what happened? All the nations joined together to fight a common enemy. All of a sudden, the same thing has been instituted in not one country, but almost all the countries. And if we all inside, if they are actually setting up some things in the heavens, preparing an assault, we ain't seeing it because ain't none of us outside. This is why all of a sudden the internet then got slow. What? Because everybody on it. Go ahead.
Verse 7. And when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them, and shall overcome them and kill them.
And this right here is confusing in itself. That you have these 2 witnesses that have power over, the plagues of the earth. They have power to shoot fire out of their mouths. But then when they're done, earthly man can still kill them. Go ahead.
And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Adonai was sacrificed. And they of the people and kindreds and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies 3 days and a half, and shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves.
Right, showing you the disdain that they had for them. Showing you the disrespect. We ain't gonna even gather the body up to bury it. Leave it out there. Go ahead.
And they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them, and make merry, and shall send gifts one to another, because these 2 prophets tormented them that dwelt on the earth.
Those 2 witnesses tormented them, right? So now the people are absolutely happy that they're dead. They will not bury their bodies, and now they're rejoicing and sending each other gifts. They partying over their death. Go ahead.
And after 3 days and a half, the spirit of life from Elohim entered into them, and they stood upon their feet.
After 3 days, they done already been decomposing. They smelling. And then after that, the spirit entered into them, and they stand up. See, there's certain things that Yahweh allowed for a reason. After they've looked at them for 3.5 days, they know for a fact they dead. See, sometimes, we look at a movie, somebody died, and then like 2 minutes later, they wake back up. He said, oh, well, he must not have been dead. You know, that's what we would have concluded. We wouldn't have said that he came back. We say he must not have been dead. But 3 days after decomposing and all of that, and then they stand up. Are Yahweh's in the point making business? Go ahead.
And great fear fell upon them which saw them. Verse 12. And they heard a great voice from heaven saying unto them, Come up hither. And they ascended up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies beheld them.
Then you have to wonder what is going through your mind after you see someone that you have persecuted come back to life after 3 days and then ascend into heaven. Go ahead.
And the same hour was there a great earthquake, and the 10th part of the city fell. And in the earthquake were slain of men 7,000. And the remnant were affrighted, and gave glory to the Elohim of heaven.
Right. Only the ones that have it in them to give glory to the Elohim of heaven. See, the others are going to continually fight and continually try to maintain the lifestyle that they once had, instead of repenting of their deeds and allowing Yahweh's situation to change their lives. Go ahead.
The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe comes quickly. And the 7th angel sounded, and there were great voices in heaven, saying, The kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Adonai and of his Mashiach, and he shall reign forever and ever. And the 24 elders which sat before Elohim on their seats fell upon their faces and worshipped Elohim, saying, We give you thanks, O Adonai Elohim Almighty, which art, and was, and are to come, because you have taken to you your great power, and has reigned. And the nations were angry, and your wrath is come, and the time of the dead, that they should be judged, and that you should give reward unto your servants the prophets, and to the saints, and them that fear your name, small and great, and should destroy them which destroy the earth. And the temple of Elohim was opened in heaven, and there was seen in his temple the ark of his testament, and there were lightnings, and voices, and thunderings, and an earthquake, and great hail.
So then the heathen knows, understand the heathen study this book as well. And they do understand that there will be great things happening in the heavens. When we look at all of their movies, the war takes place in the heavens. The war takes place in the sky. And none of us are supposed to be outside at night. All of the curfews end at nightfall. All right, time for y'all go in. So now grown people got a curfew like when we were kids. The street light come on, we got to go inside. Revelation chapter 12, I'll start that at verse 1. You understand now? They got cameras everywhere now. See, it used to be those were highway cams. Then they changed them and started putting them in various intersections. Now, I've seen those things in various neighborhoods, right by people's houses. And I know the ones in Atlanta, city of Atlanta, they have microphones on them as well. The ones in Buckhead have microphones, movable cameras. They got people behind orchestrating, moving the camera to see everything that's going on and to hear what's going on. So it's not just like, hey, if I don't, go in, ain't nobody gonna know. Depends on where you live and depends on where those cameras at. Go ahead.
Did you want to do Daniel or?
No. Did I skip that?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go to Daniel chapter 12. I'm sorry. Daniel chapter 12, and let's start that at verse 1.
And at the same time, at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which stands for the children of your people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time.
Right, and we know Michael is who is as El, and a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses will say that this is Yahshua. I stay out of angel business. People say, well, who is this? Who do you think it is? That's above my pay grade. Because, see, I know one thing what Yahweh will do. Yahweh will nickname some people in a minute. We got 3-4 names for Israel. So how I know what he called somebody else? They say even when he come back, he going to have a name and ain't none of us going to know it. So I stay in my lane. All I know is I don't want to fight him. I know that much. Go ahead.
And at that time your people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt.
Right, being resurrected. So we know that they didn't float up in the sky. If they was already in heaven, they should have came down with Michael. But then they going to wake up and come out of the dust. They coming out of the ground. If they was already in heaven, they supposed to be coming down with him. Go ahead.
And they that be wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that turn many to righteousness as the stars forever and ever. But you, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. Then I, Daniel, looked, and behold, there stood other two, the one on this side of the bank of the river, and the other on the side of the bank, on that side of the river. And one said to the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, how long shall it be to the end of these wonders? And I heard the man clothed in linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swear by him that lives forever, that it shall be for a time, times and a half. And when he shall have accomplished to scatter the power of the holy people, all these things shall be finished.
To scatter the power of the holy people. We don't consider that it is a blessing that Yahweh has allowed the children of Israel to be scattered in small congregations. The larger that concentration of Israelites, the easier it is for the adversary to destroy us. We do not even consider those things as a form of protection. But the first thing people want to do, hey, let's join together all these small congregations and let's make a big one. You mean so they can kill us all at one time?
Mm-hmm.
No, thanks. Go ahead, brother.
And I heard, but I understood not. Then said I, O my Adonai, what shall be the end of these things? And he said, Go your way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end.
Go your way. I ain't no need of you asking this. It ain't gonna do nothing but cause you problems. Go your way. Go ahead.
Many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. And from the time that the daily sacrifice shall be taken away, and the abomination that makes desolate set up, there shall be 1,290 days.
So we're dealing with this 3.5 years over and over and over. So the abomination of desolation has to do what he is set to do. Go ahead.
Blessed is he that waits, and comes to the 1,305 and 30 days. But go you your way till the end be, for you shall rest, and stand in your lot at the end of the days.
Right. In other words, you have already done that which you were supposed to do. I'm not going to discuss any more of this. Let's go to Revelation chapter 12. So Daniel talked about this great prince that will stand up for the children of Israel. Now let's see what the Revelator says. Go ahead.
And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she being with child cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered.
And we know that this woman is Israel, the crown of 12 stars, the 12 tribes of Israel, and she being with child cried, travailing in birth. She brought forth the Messiah with great pain. The nation's trying to kill the man child. Go ahead.
And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads.
All of the rulership of the Euro-Gentiles. Go ahead.
And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born.
And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven. A third part of the angels are going to follow the adversary, the devil. Go ahead.
And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron.
They said, let us see this man-child who was born king of the Jews. But they were really trying to kill him. Go ahead.
And her child was caught up unto Elohim and to his throne.
Mm-hmm.
And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared of Elohim, that they should feed her there 1,260 days.
Uh-huh.
And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels.
So then we have a war going on in the heaven of heavens. And this is an angelic war that's going on. And in all their movies, the fight takes place in the sky. Think about the Avengers and all of the stuff that they have going on in their movies. They say they're fighting aliens. Go ahead.
And prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceives the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him.
So if his angels are then cast out with him, and they are preparing to fight Yahshua, then they are getting all of their kingdoms together to get ready to prepare the assault against Yahshua here. Because they lost one battle. And now they got to prepare for the next. Go ahead.
And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now is come salvation and strength and the kingdom of our Elohim and the power of his anointed one. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our Elohim day and night.
And do we know that's what the adversary does? That he will attempt to persuade us into doing some things, and then he can't wait to go and tell Yahweh about it? An accusation toward us? Go ahead.
And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto the death. Therefore rejoice, you heavens, and you that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great anger, because he knows that he has but a short time.
And are we preparing ourselves for these things? Are we attempting to prepare ourselves mentally and spiritually? That everything on the earth is going to change? For there's no reason for the adversary to then move in secret. He can move openly at that point. Go ahead.
And when the dragon saw that he was cast onto the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child.
The woman that brought forth the man-child was Israel. We go back to our history book and we can find where the Euro-Gentiles came and persecuted the children of Israel. And the same thing is going to take place again. Go ahead.
And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place, where she's nourished for a time and times and half a time
3.5 years.
from the face of the serpent.
The same thing Daniel said. Go ahead.
And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood.
So then, as we attempt to escape to the wilderness, then here comes the adversary, the devil, attempting to flood us, to drown us. And some of us ain't never been on the fishing boat. So you talking about a cargo ship, and then a wave come the size of the Twin Towers. It's gonna definitely be some PP in that water. You understand? That whole boat may be yellow around it, Jack. I said, why did it look like that? Oh yeah, they tinkled. Yeah. We ain't never seen that much water. Go ahead.
And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth, and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. And the dragon was angry with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of Elohim, and have the testimony of Yahshua HaMashiach.
Now, understand, the dragon is angry with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed. Not all of her seed. Only the ones who keep the commandments. So he's in the process of seeing who's on his side. The rest he made war with. So we have a decision to make. We can make this easy decision and then be persecuted with the adversary. Or we go ahead and make the hard one. It says, to them that persevere. Persevere means you got to go through something. And we have to consider, if they are trying to join all of their resources, we have to consider what all kind of technology they have to be able to implement in those small chips that can be inserted into man. Having the ability to control man's thoughts, emotions, and acts basically turns us into an action figure, and somebody else got the controller. Did you finish that, brother?
Yes.
All right, let's go to Matthew chapter 24. Matthew chapter 24, and we're going to read verses 29 through 31.
Verse 29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the power of the heavens shall be shaken.
Right. So now, even as we read the words of Yahshua in the New Testament, we then are still dealing with these angels being cast to earth as these stars fall unto the heaven. You're talking about a real star. A small asteroid will tear up the earth. A star will destroy it. Yet it says stars. These angels must lose their residency with Yahweh. Go ahead.
And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory.
So the heathen knows that the fight is going to be in the sky. So we have to ask ourselves, what are they attempting to prepare there? Go ahead.
And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other.
Right. And are we preparing ourselves to see these signs. But let us hear the conclusion of this matter. Let's go to Revelation chapter 19. Revelation chapter 19, and let's start that at verse 1.
And after these things I heard a great voice of much people in heaven, saying, Hallelujah! Salvation and glory and honor and power unto the Adonai our Elohim. For true and righteous are his judgments, for he has judged the great whore, which did corrupt the earth with her fornication, and has avenged the blood of his servants at her hand.
Right. And after these things, I heard a great voice of much people in heaven saying, Hallelujah. Not hallelujah, Jehovah. Not hallelujah, Jehovah. Not hallelujah, God. Not hallelujah, Lord. Hallelujah. But see, folks going to deal with what they want to deal with until it's time to see the rider on that white horse. Go ahead.
Wasn't Hallelujah?
Well, hallelujah. No, I didn't see that either.
And again,
Didn't see that. Go ahead.
and again they said, Hallelujah, and her smoke rose up forever and ever. And the 24 elders and the 4 beasts fell down and worshipped Elohim that sat upon the throne, saying, Amen, Hallelujah.
Right. And you always having people talking about they know who the 24 elders are. I stay out of business that don't concern me. Anybody that's telling you that is guessing. And what good is going to do for you at the end of your guessing? Because it ain't going to get you salvation. Go ahead.
And a voice came out of the throne saying, Praise our Elohim, all you his servants, and you that fear him, both small and great. And I heard as it were the voice of a great multitude, and as the voice of many waters, and as the voice of mighty thunderings, saying, Hallelujah, for the Adonai Elohim omnipotent reigns. Let us be glad and rejoice, and give honor to him, for the marriage of the Lamb is come, and his wife has made herself ready.
His wife has made herself ready. She has sanctified herself. She has cleansed herself. She has gotten rid of her impure parts because the rebels have been cast out and separated from her. Now she's pure and ready for the marriage. Now she's clean. Go ahead.
And to her was granted that she should be arrayed in fine linen, clean and white. For the fine linen is the righteousness of saints.
Right. When you deal with something that's white, it is the emptiest of all colors. It has absolutely nothing else in it. It is completely empty before Yahweh. And able then to receive instruction. See, the more we have in us, the more we fight against Yahweh's direction. Because we think we know better. Go ahead.
And he says unto me, Right, blessed are they which are called unto the marriage supper of the Lamb. And he says unto me, These are the true sayings of Elohim. And I fell at his feet to worship him. And he said unto me, See you do it not. I'm your fellow servant, and of your brethren that have the testimony of Yahshua. Worship Elohim, for the testimony of Yahshua is the spirit of prophecy.
Right. And angels still will not allow the children of Israel to worship him. Not a righteous one. Go ahead.
And I saw heaven opened, and behold a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness he does judge and make war. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns. And he had a name written that no man knew but he himself.
He had a name written that no man knew but he himself. His eyes were as a flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns. He's the King of kings. He rules over the kings who rules over the nations. Go ahead.
And he was clothed with a vesture dipped in blood, and his name is called the Word of Elohim. And the armies which were in heaven followed him upon white horses, clothed in fine linen, white and clean. And out of his mouth goes a sharp sword.
Right. Out of his mouth goes a sharp sword. It's the word of Elohim. Judgment proceeds out of his mouth, and it's the same word that we read. You want to see the sword that proceeds out of his mouth? Open up this book. Go ahead.
That with it he should smite the nations.
Right. People said, well, such and such cut somebody with the word. He said the sword proceed out of his mouth. You cut with the word. Go ahead.
And he shall rule them with a rod of iron. And he treads the winepress of the fierceness and wrath of the mighty El. And he has on his vesture and on his thigh a name written, King of Kings and Adonai of Adonais. And I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, Come and gather yourselves together unto the supper of the great Elohim.
Right. Come and gather yourself to Elohim's great day. It is going to be a great feast for beasts to consume beasts. The men without law are the beasts who shall be sacrificed for the beasts of the earth. Go ahead.
That you may eat the flesh of kings, and the flesh of captains, and the flesh of mighty men, and the flesh of horses, and of them that sit on them, and the flesh of all men, both free and bond, both small and great.
So the heathen and all of them who argue, talking about what we're keeping and why we shouldn't keep it, all of them are going to be present at some holy day. All of them are going to be present at a feast day. The ones who make it will be made to come up and keep the Feast of Tabernacles. But the ones that don't, they'll be a part of this feast right here. But only the fowl gonna eat at this feast. Go ahead.
And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to make war against him that sat on the horse and against his army.
Okay, stop. And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth, not king, kings, and their armies gathered together. So nation and nation and nation, all of a sudden, the same people who've been fighting one another is now going to come together to fight Yahshua. All of a sudden, we got one common operation all over the earth. What are they gathering for? Go ahead, bro.
And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast, and them that worshipped his image.
Now, he deceived them which had the mark of the beast. They think they're going to get the mark of the beast and everything is going to go well with them. And they're going to receive a greater punishment. Go ahead.
These both were cast alive into a lake of fire burning with brimstone. And the remnant were slain with the sword of him that sat upon the horse, which sword proceed out of his mouth.
Now, the remnant were slain with the sword of him that sat upon the horse. The word the sword proceeded out of his mouth. So it's the word of his father. When he pronounces this word, it's supposed to cut us. People, we get upset when we get in this book and we get cut with the word. Please be cut now. Because if he cuts you, you're going to die. If I cut you, you're going to stagger. But you ain't going to die. You might not speak to me for a couple weeks, but you're going to live. And you might have an opportunity to attain your salvation. He cuts you one time, you out of here. So please be cut now. And allow those wounds to heal. Because what he cut with, nobody heals. Go ahead, bro.
And all the fowls were filled with their flesh.
All right, that is all that we're gonna do for today. Please, let's consider all of these things, especially as we approach unto our holy days, and we understand that it may be really difficult for some people to keep these holy days this time around, because you don't know what restrictions are there, and we completely understand. This is one of the reasons why we want to make sure that we register, so that we don't have our people cooking for 200 people and ain't but 50 gonna show up. Each town got their own set of restrictions, and then and at this point you can't even book no hotel. So we have to consider those things. So let us make a heartfelt attempt in doing that in righteousness, so that those that are laboring to get those things done, that they are doing, so they won't over or under do the work, because either one of them will get us in trouble with Yahweh, possibly. All right. Let's go over our announcement. The UCI has a dress code whenever you are in attendance at this facility. The dress code will be strictly enforced at all times. All females must wear skirts or dresses that reach below their knees. Your shirt must cover your cleavage. Sisters must have a full head covering at all times, and no makeup should be worn on the Sabbath. Now, people will look at this and say, this is just too many regulations. When he that's sitting on that horse cut, and we see the people being devoured, we will actually appreciate Yahweh's law and appreciate those that made us abide by it. And it says a full head covering. I know that some people don't know what that means, because they watching the internet and they have that cute little shawl that just drape around. It looks so pretty. It just drop, and you can still see all they pretty hairdo. Because first of all, it don't start to back here anyway. And then it just coming right down, and then it's see-through. So what kind of covering is that? It's see-through, and it don't start to half of your head. But then we'll have feasts. We'll have gatherings. What did he say? He said even the solemn meeting is lawlessness. Why? Because he's looking at, this is how you coming in there? You didn't even make an attempt. Young brothers must wear your pants on your waist. No undergarments should be seen. If you have any questions concerning the dress code, please see the deacons. That means ask the deacons. Don't go over there and trying to fight with them about we ought to change the dress code for you. And that goes for brothers and sisters. You know, brothers get a few muscles, he want to wear his tank top. No, you can't wear that in here. Sisters class has been canceled for March 15th and April 5th to allow us the opportunity to complete the cleansing and purging of our homes as commanded. We will resume class on April 19th after the holy days. I think that's all. Let's see. What was up here? It is tax season. If you would like to receive a letter for your donations to the camp, please send an email to ucidonations@gmail.com. This can only be sent to those who have filled the information asked on the front of the offering envelope, or those who may have sent funds electronically. Your unleavened cleaning should be well under its way. The camp cleaning is actually scheduled for the 28th and the 29th. The 28th to today, if I'm not mistaken. And we will do those things soon, so that everybody has an opportunity to leave, if they will, before their so-called curfew of 9 o'clock. Because, you know, we got to beat the street light. So I'm going to give everybody an opportunity to beat that street light if you want to. But That's all that we're going to do for today. Remember the Sabbath to keep it holy. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.